Sometimes things just don't go to plan. Whether you're asking your crush out on a date for the very first time, or applying for a job you know you're the perfect fit for, most people can relate to that feeling of having to think on your feet when an anticipated outcome doesn't come to pass. This also applies to the wonderfully insane world of filmmaking, as there have been countless occasions throughout the decades when an actor or director have found themselves being caught completely off guard by an unplanned mishap mid-scene. Some gaffes are so unexpected that they render a whole take completely unusable, whereas others actually add a sense of realism or authentic humor to an exchange, and manage to wiggle their way into the final cut of our favorite films. I'm Gareth from WhatCulture.com, and here are 10 real reactions to behind-the-scenes movie screw-ups. Number 10. Jake Gyllenhaal cuts his hand on a mirror. Nightcrawler. When an actor is given the freedom to improvise, there's always a chance that a brief moment of cinematic magic will be captured on camera. In the case of Nightcrawler, Jake Gyllenhaal was given this creative space to produce a powerful beat from his own imagination, when he chose to let rip at a mirror, in what would become one of the most memorable scenes in the flick. However, the unplanned action of completely wrecking the bathroom mirror in Lou's apartment led to a very real reaction in the form of Gyllenhaal slicing his hand open. The actor eventually needed 44 stitches to stop the bleeding, and sew his hand back together. But that didn't stop the force of nature from working. 7 hours later, Gyllenhaal returned to shoot a few scenes. On a second watch, you'll probably notice that the scenes with Lou in the salvage yard see the character keeping his hands behind his back. This was down to the fact that Gyllenhaal was still reeling from the freak injury, and disguising the genuine cast his hand was in due to that moment of mirror genius / madness a few hours earlier. 44 stitches and 7 years bad luck. Number 9. Anne Hathaway falls off a step. The Princess Diaries. Sometimes a piece of direction can be the key to unlocking something brilliant in a scene. Yet on other occasions, a specific note can be an actor's worst enemy. The order given to Anne Hathaway during one particular scene in The Princess Diaries definitely falls into the latter category. In a scene which saw her character, Mia Thermopolis, talking to her best bud Lily Moscovitz on some bleachers, the late director Gary Marshall told Hathaway that whenever Heather Matarazzo is at the bottom step, I want you to be at the top step of the bleacher. Hathaway kept the note at the forefront of her mind throughout the scene, and in one particular take she realized that the pair were going to end up on the same step. So the actor decided to turn sharply in order to avoid not delivering on the note. Oh, it had also rained a bit beforehand, so you can see where this is going. Hathaway completely wiped out on the slippy step for real, and the reaction from Matarazzo was entirely in the moment too. Luckily, the happy accident worked a treat in the charming scene, so Marshall opted to leave it in the finished product. Number 8. Ben Stiller forgets his line. Zoolander. Even comedy legend Ben Stiller has found himself lost for words on occasion, and during one particular scene in Zoolander, the actor went completely dry when talking to David Duchovny's hand model J.P. Pruitt. This human screw-up could have quite easily derailed the entire exchange between Pruitt, Derek, and Christine Taylor's Matilda, but Stiller chose not to kick up a fuss and instead relied on his hilarious instincts in the moment. After Pruitt had given a detailed answer to Derek's question as to why male models had been used to assassinate historical figures, a forgetful Stiller didn't know what his next line was, and instead chose to repeat the question, but why male models? Duchovny didn't know this was coming and had to think on his feet, delivering a dry, "Are you serious? I just told you that a moment ago," in response to the improvised moment. Both unplanned lines were in keeping with the actor's characters, and a potentially ruined take became a beat of comedic brilliance. That is how you do it. Number 7. Kurt Russell destroys an antique guitar. The Hateful Eight. During a scene in The Hateful Eight, Jennifer Jason Leigh's Daisy Dormagoo had just finished playing a tune on an extremely rare Martin guitar from the 1860s, when Kurt Russell's John the Hangman Ruth snatched the instrument out of her hands. Leigh was pretty sure that Russell would have to swap out the antique for a dummy guitar before smashing it to pieces. Only he didn't. Russell wasn't aware, and was said to have felt terrible after finding out he just pulverized a $40,000 one-of-a-kind piece of musical history. But it was Leigh's reaction in the scene which told the real story, clearly channeling her own shock when Russell started to demolish the guitar. As Leigh noted that she was saving up to actually buy the Martin after the film, the actor looked genuinely traumatized at the sight of her her on-screen captor murdering this ancient musical relic. It all worked out for her in the end though, as Tarantino gifted the actor an 1880s Martin at the end of filming, which she claimed was kind of extraordinary. Shame about the other one though. Number 6, Joe Pesci breaks a rib, Casino. If an actor is required to perform a physical scene on set, accidents can happen and bones can be broken. However, to break the exact same bone whilst filming a movie under the stewardship of the exact same director 15 years apart is just plain unlucky. When Joe Pesci's Nicky was jumped and beaten with a baseball bat towards the end of Martin Scorsese's Casino, the actor suffered a broken rib for his art, when a couple of 275-pound heifers, as Pesci called them, fell on him the wrong way during the filming of the climactic scene. In a shocking turn of events, it turned out that this was the exact same rib Pesci injured during the filming of Scorsese's Raging Bull, when Robert De Niro, also Pesci's co-star in Casino, threw the actor through a glass door and gave him a few stomps in one particularly disturbing scene. Pesci eventually came to the conclusion that great movies mean cracked ribs. So, there you have it, I guess. Number 5, Daryl Hannah chips her elbow, Blade Runner. Even replicants make mistakes every now and again. This much was true during the filming of Ridley Scott's sci-fi masterpiece Blade Runner, when actor Daryl Hannah was involved in a quite literal slip-up on set. As Hannah's character Pris was fleeing J.F. Sebastian in the rain, the replicant went flying into a van. Her arm went crashing through the window before she quickly scurried out of shot. It made for a hell of an exit. However, it was later made known that Hannah wasn't actually supposed to smash through the window, and this whole moment had been an unfortunate accident. Unfortunate as it led to Hannah chipping her elbow for real. In all honesty, the moment Scott decided to have Hannah run across a wet, slippy floor in 6-inch heels, he pretty much set his actor up for a fall. Literally in this case. Some actors steal a prop from set to remember their time on a movie. Others walk away with a nice big scar for their troubles. Number 4, Ryan Gosling eats a punch from Harrison Ford, Blade Runner 2049. Replicants just can't catch a break, can they? Well, at least this mistake didn't make its way into the final cut of Denis Villeneuve's Blade Runner sequel. However, someone did manage to capture this picture-perfect moment, and for that we thank them. During Blade Runner 2049, Ryan Gosling's Kay finds Harrison Ford's Rick Deckard in the ruins of Las Vegas. This eventually leads to Deckard repeatedly punching Kay in the face in the middle of a long-since-forgotten nightclub. However, Ford was clearly a little too eager to kick his younger co-star's ass on set, and actually managed to sock him for real during the shooting of the showdown. Gosling has since admitted that Ford didn't exactly apologize for his mistake. Instead, he brought over a bottle of scotch and poured him a drink, before walking off with the rest of the bottle like the Hollywood legend he is. Ford, on the other hand, felt that only hitting Gosling once during the filming of the scene was an achievement in itself, stating, "You know, I threw about 100 punches in the shooting of it, and I only hit him once." He does have a point, you know. Number 3, Tom Cruise breaks his ankle, Mission Impossible Fallout. Speaking of non-human beings on the big screen, here we have Hollywood's resident stunt machine Tom Cruise powering through a seriously intense injury. During a chase in Fallout, Ethan Hunt is seen sprinting across London's rooftops in pursuit of Henry Cavill's August Walker. As usual, Cruz doesn't shy away from the action here, and jumps headfirst into everything, from sprinting across glass ceilings to hopping from building to building. However, it was in that latter stunt where Cruz found himself in a bit of trouble. As Ethan throws himself off some scaffolding onto another rooftop, Cruz managed to do some legitimate damage to his right ankle. In fact, the actor broke it completely. However, instead of calling for the scene to be cut short, Cruz hoisted himself up and limped out of shot before crumbling to the ground in agony. The gruesome injury is there for all to see in the finished film, with Cruz using the genuinely excruciating moment to sell Hunt's authentic fatigue in the chase. You could even say Cruz really put his foot in it this time. I'll show myself up. Number 2, Donald Glover genuinely slips, The Martian. As we've noted a few times already, great actors are capable of thinking on the fly when something goes wrong mid-scene. It's also become apparent in this list that Ridley Scott is quite happy to use an unexpected take in the final cut of his movies. This willingness can be seen yet again during a scene involving Donald Glover in The Martian. Glover's astrodynamicist Rich Purnell is trying to quickly exit his room, and comically wipes out before springing straight back to his feet. Pennell then says, "I'm fine," and keeps on moving towards his kitchen to make a cup of coffee. The actor later confessed in an interview with Conan O'Brien that this was his first take of the scene, and his character eating it was actually him authentically eating it. Scott was definitely right to leave this gaffe in the movie, as it clearly highlights Pennell's urgent need to get working on an alternative plan to bring Matt Damon's Mark Watney back home to Earth. Number 1. Daniel Craig catches the bottle before it breaks. The girl with the dragon tattoo. We shouldn't be surprised that Daniel Craig is capable of pulling off the smoothest of saves in the blink of an eye. However, the girl with the dragon tattoo director David Fincher was still in awe of Craig's ability to think on his feet when he accidentally knocked a milk bottle off a shelf during one of the film's scenes. In an instant, as his character, Mikael Blomkvist, Craig slid back and caught the glass bottle before it hit the ground and smashed to pieces. The director loved his real reaction to this on-set screw-up so much that he decided to keep it in the finished article. Not every accident which ends up on screen results in an actor hurting themselves or destroying an object. Some just set the stage for an individual to react to something honestly in character. Acting is reacting after all.